Welcome back everyone. Today we are taking a very close look at a coin that sits at the center of one of the biggest mistakes and mysteries in United States mint history, the 1965 Washington quarter. This is a coin that many of you probably have in your pocket change or sitting in a jar someplace, and most people just spend it without a second thought. But what if I told you that some of these very common 1965 quarters might be hiding a secret that could make it worth not 25 cents, but thousands of dollars? Stay with me because we are going to learn how to tell the difference. First, we need some background context. In the early 1960s, the United States was facing a critical coin shortage. Silver prices were rising and people were hoarding silver coins, melting them down for their bullion value. The government needed to act, and they decided to remove silver from our circulating coinage. The Coinage Act of 1965 was the solution. This law mandated that dimes and quarters from 1965 onward would be made from a copper-nickel clad composition, a layer of copper sandwiched between two layers of a nickel-copper alloy. Essentially, these new coins had no silver content. Now here is where the story gets interesting. The mint was supposed to completely switch over to this new clad composition for 1965 dated quarters, but they made a monumental error. It is believed that some of the old silver planchets, the blank coins from 1964, were accidentally left in the press hoppers and got stamped with the new 1965 date. That means there is a possibility that a genuine 1965 quarter was struck on a 90% silver planchet just like the old quarters. These are known as transitional errors, and they are incredibly rare and valuable. So the big question is, how can you tell if your 1965 quarter is a common copper, nickel coin or a rare silver error? Let's get into the details. The very first and most important test is the edge check. Take your 1965 quarter and look at its edge. A normal 1965 clad quarter will have a distinct edge where you can see a bright silver colored stripe in the middle. This is the nickel copper alloy layer. If you look closely, you will see a coppery band on either side of that silver stripe. That is the copper core showing through. This is the telltale sign of a clad coin. It looks like a sandwich. A silver 1965 quarter, on the other hand, will have a solid silver edge. There will be no coppery stripe at all. It will be uniform in color from top to bottom. If you see any copper, you have a regular quarter. The next test is the weight test. This requires a very precise scale. A standard clad 1965 quarter should weigh exactly 5.67 grams. A silver 1965 quarter, because silver is denser, will weigh about 6.25 grams. That is a difference of over half a gram, which a good jewelry scale can easily detect. If your coin weighs 6.25 grams, you might have something very special. Another test is the sound test. This takes a bit of experience, but a silver coin, when you drop it on a hard surface or ping it with another coin, will have a beautiful high-pitched ringing sound that lasts for a couple of seconds. A clad coin has a much duller thud-like sound. It doesn't ring, it just goes clunk. Finally, there is the date and mint mark detail. All 1965 quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and as part of the change they removed the mint mark from the coin, so all genuine 1965 quarters should have no mint mark above the word dollar on the reverse. If you see a mint mark like AD for Denver, it is not a 1965 quarter, and it is not the error we are talking about. Now I want to manage expectations. The chances of finding a 1965 silver quarter are astronomically low. Most experts believe only a handful exist, perhaps 20 to 40 examples, and most of those are already certified and held in major collections. Finding one in circulation today would be like winning the lottery, but that does not mean you should not look. The fun of coin collecting is the hunt. You never know what you might find. So next time you get a 1965 quarter, take a moment, turn it on its edge and look for that line of copper. If you don't see one, your heart might just skip a beat. If you think you have found one, the most important thing is to not clean it and to handle it carefully by the edges. Then you would want to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and encapsulation. First, let's get the big question out of the way. The 1983 quarter is not a rare coin. It was minted in huge numbers, over 747 million of them to be exact. That is a massive number. So in circulated condition, finding one is extremely easy, and because of that high mintage, its base value for a worn coin is just its face value, 25 cents. But wait, before you go thinking all 1983 quarters are just spare change, there are a few key things you absolutely must check, because there are some varieties and errors that can make a huge difference in value. We are going to look at three main things: the mint mark, the condition, and potential errors. Let's start with the mint mark. Look at the front of the coin, the obverse right below George Washington's ponytail. You will see the mint mark. It will be a small letter indicating where the coin was made. If there is no mint mark, that means it was made in Philadelphia. A P Mint. If you see a D, it was made in Denver, and if you see an S, it Was made in San Francisco. Now for circulated coins from 1983, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced all the coins for general circulation. The San Francisco mint only made proof coins for collectors, so if you find a 1983 S quarter in your change that is a proof coin that somehow got into circulation, and that is a fantastic find. A circulated proof coin might be worth $1 or $2 instead of 25 cents, so always check for that S mint mark. Next up is condition. While a heavily worn 1983 quarter is just worth 25 cents, one in extremely nice uncirculated condition can have a small premium, say $1 or $2, but for a coin from 1983 to have any premium from condition alone, it has to be in absolutely pristine state with no scratches, no wear, and full original luster. Think of it as looking like it just came from the mint. Now we get to the exciting part, the errors and varieties. This is where a common 1983 quarter can become worth real money. There are two major things to look for. The first is the double die obverse. Look very closely at the inscriptions on the front of the coin, like the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." If you see clear doubling in the letters, especially a distinct shadow or extra thickness, then you might have a double die variety. These are rare, but they are highly sought after by collectors. A genuine 1983 double die quarter, even in circulated condition, can be worth from $50 to over $100 depending on the strength of the doubling and its overall condition. You will need a magnifying glass to check this properly. Do not confuse this with machine doubling, which is common and adds no value. The second major error to look for is a repunched mint mark, or RPM. Sometimes, when the mint punch was applied to the coin, it was struck more than once and slightly out of position. Look at the D or P mint mark with a magnifying glass. If you see a distinct doubling or shadowing around the mint mark letter, you might have a repunched mint mark variety. These can also carry a premium. A circulated 1983 D RPM could be worth anywhere from $10 to $30. So to summarize, for a standard circulated 1983 quarter with no mint mark or a D mint mark and no errors, the value is firmly 25 cents. It is a great coin to use for spending, but if you find one with an S mint mark, it is worth a couple dollars, and if you are very lucky and you find one with a strong double die obverse or a repunched mint mark, you could be looking at a coin worth anywhere from $10 to over $100. So my advice to you is this: take 5 minutes and go through your loose change, check those 1983 quarters, look for the S mint mark, and then get out a magnifying glass and carefully check for any doubling. It is a fun little treasure hunt, and who knows, you might just find a small treasure hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching and happy coin hunting.